You wake up every morning and look in the mirror. You see a face. You see a body. You assume it is ordinary. It is not. Somewhere on this planet, out of 8 billion people, there exists a version of you so statistically improbable that building them would be harder than finding a single grain of sand on a beach the size of a planet. You are about to meet that person. Not metaphorically, mathematically. And by the end, you will understand why the odds of you existing at all were never something you should take for granted. Let's build this person from nothing, piece by piece, trait by trait, like assembling a creature out of dice rolls, except every die has millions of sides. Start with origin. Where does a person come from? Most of humanity is packed into a small number of enormous groups. Han Chinese alone make up close to a fifth of every person alive today. That is over 1 billion people sharing a single ethnic identity. But on the far edge of the human family tree, population sizes collapse into the hundreds. The Sentinelese, isolated on a small island in the Andaman Sea, are estimated to number somewhere between 50 and 400 people. The Kawahiva, deep in the Brazilian Amazon, may number fewer than 30. Small groups like these exist on nearly every continent, hidden in forests, islands, and mountain ranges most maps barely acknowledge. For our rarest human, we place their ancestry in a group of roughly 500 people. 500 out of 8 billion. That alone gives this person odds of about 1 in 16 million just for where they were born into the human family. There are roughly 7,000 distinct ethnic groups scattered across this planet. 7,000 separate threads of language, custom, and ancestry, all woven from the same genetic material, all branching outward from the same small population that once lived in Africa tens of thousands of years ago. Most of those threads are thick. A few are thinner than a single human hair. Picture humanity as a forest. A handful of trees are massive, their canopies covering entire continents. But scattered between them are saplings so small you could walk past one and never know it was there. Our rarest human grows from one of those saplings. Now add a second trait, one written directly into the body, albinism. It comes from mutations in the genes responsible for producing melanin, the pigment behind the color of skin, hair, and eyes. In someone with complete albinism, that pigment production nearly shuts down. The result is skin pale enough to look almost translucent, hair the color of frost, and eyes that can appear pale blue, gray, or even pink depending on how light bounces off the unpigmented iris. Albinism shows up in roughly 1 out of every 20,000 people worldwide. Combine that with the rare ethnicity, and the odds collapse further into the hundreds of billions. Melanin does more than color skin. It absorbs ultraviolet light. It protects the eyes from glare. It even shapes how nerve pathways wire themselves between the retina and the brain during early development. A body without it experiences the world differently. Bright daylight can feel overwhelming. Vision can be slightly less sharp. None of this is a flaw. It is simply a different setting on a dial every human body shares, turned all the way down instead of up. Picture this, a person with an ancestry so small it could fit inside a single school. Skin so pale it has almost no pigment at all. Already, this is someone you would notice instantly in any crowd on Earth. But we are not finished. Now the eyes. Green eyes are often called the rarest common eye color, occurring in roughly 1 out of 50 people. But there is something rarer than a color, complete heterochromia. This is a condition where someone is born with 2 completely different colored eyes, one blue, one brown, caused by differences in how melanin distributes itself during development. It is almost always harmless. It does not affect vision in any meaningful way. It simply makes a face unforgettable. The odds of having it sit around 1 in 1,600. Stack that on top of everything else, and the number balloons into the quadrillions. We have not even reached the brain yet. Think about what that actually looks like in a real human face. 2 eyes, perfectly healthy, perfectly functional, locked in 2 different colors for an entire lifetime. Most people who have it do not think of it as unusual at all. It is simply how their face has always looked. The same way you do not think twice about the color of your own eyes in the mirror every morning. Rarity, it turns out, feels completely ordinary from the inside. It only looks extraordinary from the outside. Let's make this person left-handed. Handedness seems simple, but it is genetically strange. Even identical twins, sharing nearly all the same DNA, differ in handedness about 1 time in 5. Why? Because the brain itself organizes language and motor control differently depending on which hand dominates. Right-handed brains usually process language almost entirely in the left hemisphere. Left-handed brains often spread that work across both sides. In many cultures throughout history, left-handed children were quietly pressured into using their right hand, which means the true rate of natural left-handedness may be slightly underreported. Even with a conservative estimate, about 1 in 10 people is left-handed. Multiply this in, and the number representing our rarest human now stretches into the quadrillions, a number so large it stops feeling like a number and starts feeling like a fact about the universe. But the body has more secrets. Most people see the world through 3 types of light-sensing cells in the eye, tuned roughly to red, green, and blue wavelengths. The brain blends signals from these 3 into the millions of colors a typical person can perceive. But a small number of women carry a 4th type, tetrachromacy, a genetic quirk tied to the X chromosome, which means it appears almost exclusively in women, since they carry 2 X chromosomes and can inherit 2 slightly different versions of the relevant gene. Some researchers estimate true functional tetrachromats may perceive up to 100 million distinct colors, 10 times what an ordinary human sees. Scientists estimate it occurs in roughly 1 out of 80,000 people overall. Think about that for a second. Somewhere on Earth right now, someone is looking at a sunset and seeing colors layered inside colors that the rest of humanity is biologically incapable of perceiving. They are not imagining it. Their eyes are built differently. Now for something stranger than vision: memory. In 2006, neuroscientist James McGaugh encountered a woman named Jill Price who described something unsettling. She could not stop remembering, not just major events, but ordinary Tuesdays, specific conversations, the weather on dates that meant nothing to anyone else. McGaugh eventually helped formally identify this as highly superior autobiographical memory, sometimes called hyperthymesia. People with this condition can recall almost every day of their life in vivid, almost cinematic detail. Fewer than 100 confirmed cases exist anywhere in published research. Even generous estimates that include people who have never been studied put the global total at only a few hundred. That places the odds at roughly 1 in 16 million. Now combine every trait: rare ethnicity, albinism, complete heterochromia, left-handedness, tetrachromacy, hyperthymesia. Multiply all 6 probabilities together, and you land on a number close to 1 in 7 septillion. What does 7 septillion even mean? Astronomers estimate the number of stars in the entire observable universe at roughly 1 septillion. If you tried to count every grain of sand on every beach and desert on Earth, you would need close to 1 million Earths stacked together to reach a number that large. This hypothetical person is rarer than a star, rarer than a grain of sand multiplied across 1 million planets. And here's the strange part: we have not even touched blood type. We have not touched the thousands of small mutations that shape height, intelligence, immune response, or the shape of a single fingerprint. We have not touched the countless silent variations sitting quietly inside every strand of human DNA, waiting for nobody in particular to notice them. If you kept adding traits, the odds would not shrink toward 0. They would simply continue falling off the edge of numbers that have any meaningful comparison left in the physical world. So why does any of this matter to you, a completely ordinary person reading this on an ordinary day? Because the math we just used to build an impossible person is the exact same math that built you. You are not a simple creature. You are an almost unthinkable stack of independent probabilities. Your eye color came from one roll of inherited dice. Your handedness came from another. Your immune system, your exact fingerprint pattern, the precise way your brain processes language, the specific shape of your laugh. Every one of these traits passed through its own improbable filter before becoming part of you. Multiply enough of those filters together, and the version of you sitting here right now becomes almost as statistically absurd as the rarest human we just built from scratch. You did not need albinism or heterochromia to be unlikely. You only needed to be exactly you. Every detail compounding against every other detail until the final result is someone who has, by some calculations, never existed before in the entire history of the species and will likely never exist again after you are gone. Evolution does not aim for rare. It does not try to create one in a septillion outcomes on purpose. It simply runs the same dice game, generation after generation for hundreds of thousands of years, and rare results fall out the other side as an accident of scale. You are one of those accidents. So is every person you have ever met. Think about how many ancestors had to survive, find each other, and reproduce successfully for you to exist at all. Trace your family back 10 generations, and you already have over 1,000 direct ancestors, every single one of whom needed to live long enough, meet the right partner, and have children who themselves survived. Trace it back further, through famines, migrations, wars, and diseases that wiped out entire villages. And the chain holding you together starts to look less like an accident and more like a small miracle of persistence. Any single break in that chain, anywhere across tens of thousands of years, and the specific combination of traits sitting in your body right now would simply never have come together. Nobody else would have been born to take your place. That exact configuration would have vanished from the possibility space forever. This is not a metaphor about feeling special. It is closer to a literal description of probability. The same multiplication that turned albinism, rare ancestry, mismatched eyes, left-handedness, an extra color receptor, and a near photographic memory into a 1 in 7 septillion outcome is happening quietly, invisibly, inside every single body on the planet, including yours. Most of those traits are not as dramatic. They do not have names you would recognize from a documentary, but they stack the same way: height, immune resilience, the precise architecture of a fingerprint, the timing of a laugh, the particular blend of curiosity and caution that shapes how you make decisions. None of it required a rare condition to be statistically absurd. It only required being exactly, specifically, you. You woke up this morning and looked in the mirror, expecting to see something ordinary. You did not. You saw the end result of an unbroken chain of improbable survivals stretching back further than written history, arriving, against staggering odds, as exactly the person standing in front of that glass.